I've said this on this channel before, the Bose 700 are my favorite pair of noise cancelling headphones on the market today. Do the newly introduced AirPods Max have enough to turn the tables and become my favorite pair of ANC headphones? Let's find out in this comparison review between the AirPods Max and the Bose NC 700. The way I'm going to do this is to look at a few things that matter and then give a point to either Apple or Bose. At the end of the review, we'll tally up the points and see who garners up more points. An important note to make here, this is not a scientific method to evaluate, and certain elements or features might be more valuable than others. It's not exactly fair to attribute a single point equally to all features, like giving the same weight to how it looks versus how it sounds like. But we're not going to do weighted averages because we're not going to go that far, and also because what matters more to one person might very well be different than what matters for someone else. So just keep in mind, if at the end one has twice as much points as the other, it does not mean it is twice as better. It simply means it does twice as many things better. So take that with a grain of salt and maybe look at how many points it gets in the areas that matter most to you. If you haven't seen my reviews of the Bose 700 and the AirPods Max, make sure to watch those as I go into more details about the features of each. I'll put the links in the description. So let's jump right in. Let's start with aesthetics. This is a tough point to give because prior to the AirPods Max, the Bose 700 were my favorite looking headset. And I still think they look very cool, very futuristic, very premium as well. If you had asked me a few weeks back, I would have said this category is Bose's and tough to beat. But it's hard to compete with unibody aluminum ear cups and a stainless steel headband. The AirPods Max just look way more premium to the point where the Bose kind of looks cheap next to them. So point has to go to the AirPods Max for aesthetics and look and feel. But that point comes at a price, because as sexy and premium as aluminum looks and feels, it is quite heavy. Heavier than plastic, much heavier actually. At 385 grams, the AirPods Max weigh a whopping 130 grams more than the Bose that comes in at about 254 grams. And you can feel that. The mesh canopy is supposed to distribute that weight evenly, and to a certain degree it does, but personally I did not find the AirPods Max particularly comfortable, especially after extended periods of wear. And when I wear them with my eyeglasses, it's much worse. I start feeling discomfort and pain after less than an hour of wearing them, and I have to continuously reposition them to find a painless position. Mind you, the Bose 700 aren't the most comfortable headphones. Their older sibling, the QC35, were much more comfortable, but compared to the AirPods Max, the Bose gets a very easy point in this category. Next up, let's look at the case. I'm not gonna even go there. Point for Bose. Okay. Maybe I'll go there just in case you've been in an internet detox for the last couple of weeks and this is the first review you've seen on this. The AirPod Max have this weird thing they call a smart case. It looks ridiculous. It does absolutely nothing in terms of protection. Bose has a decent looking case, offers good protection, and a place to sew in cables, so there you go. Easy point to Bose. Next up, interface. How you interact with the headset is an important element. Bose has a few buttons and a touch area. Apple decided to go with even more minimal buttons. Actually, just one for toggling ANC in transparency mode, and a digital crown, which is like a larger version of what they have on their Apple Watches. And I actually like that and prefer it to touch controls. It gives you more precise incremental control over volume. It works with gloves. It works always. A touch gesture can not register, but turning a crown or pressing it always registers. So in theory, this should have been an easy point for Apple, but it's not. Because in Apple's attempt to go minimal buttons and a clean design, in my opinion, they went way too far. This thing does not have a power button. so you cannot manually turn it off. Yes, if you put it in the case, it goes into low power mode, and yes, if you leave it stationary, it will do the same after 5 minutes, but that is annoying and frustrating. Very frustrating. Way more than I thought it would be, and let me tell you why. I have quite a couple of headphones, earbuds, even mono headsets. They're usually on my desk, not in their cases, just on my desk. And when I get a call, I pick one up, I wear it, turn it on, and audio routes there. Well, not if the AirPods Max are on my desk. They hog every single call that comes in. Even if I wear another headset and turn it on, audio reverts to the AirPods. I fight with my phone every single time to switch back audio source, then the AirPods steal it again, then switch back. Very, very frustrating. Yes, I know, if I put them in the case, it doesn't do that anymore. Yes, I can have my iPhone not reroute calls to Bluetooth, but I don't want to do any of those things. When did the ability to switch something off become too much to ask? Oh, and the AirPods Max don't have an audio jack, so forget about connecting them to a plane's in-flight entertainment system without shelling out $35 to Apple for a Lightning to 3.5mm cable. So while a point does go to Apple for how you interact with the headset, the lack of power button and 3.5mm jack, or if not the jack, at least supplying the cable for free on a $550 headset, well, that cannot go unpunished. So I'm giving a point to Bose as well for being normal, having a power button, having an audio jack, and not only that, they also give you the audio cable for free. So come on, this must deserve a point. So point to Bose as well over here. Noise cancellation. For many years, Bose has been the king of the noise cancellation game. Sony kind of infringed on that in their latest iterations of the 1000XM series, but Bose are still one of the worthiest contenders. So how does the AirPods Max compare? Well, surprisingly well. I spent a lot of time comparing both in various situations, and the AirPods Max stand up quite well against the 700s. I feel they also have a better passive noise isolation, probably facilitated by the fact that the ear cups have a tighter clamp, so that probably gives them a better seal. But to let you guys try and see the difference, I'm going to do an unconventional experiment. I'm going to place a lavalier microphone inside the ear cups and simulate noise to let you get a feel of how the noise cancellation performs, and later how transparency mode compares as well. In theory, the mic will pick up when my ear is picking up, but that's just it in theory. There's a lot of variables here, the quality of the lav mic, how the wire slightly disrupts the seal, etc. So keep in mind, this will not at all be an accurate representation, it will just give you a rough, and the emphasis is on rough, idea on how they compare. So let's start with noise cancelling. So right now I have the lavalier microphone inside the ear cup, recording on my iPhone. I have this in transparency mode, so this is how you can hear me right now. I'm going to switch it to noise cancellation and then put on some simulated background noise so that you can see how it cancels it out, or how I hear it basically. So this is noise cancellation. I'm sure you can hear my voice is much lower at this point. So now let's turn on the simulated background noise. I'm going to circle between noise cancellation and transparency mode. So this is transparency mode right now, and of course it is much higher than it was with noise cancellation. Back to noise cancellation. I'm going to cycle between the levels of noise cancellation, so this is 10. This is at the noise cancellation level of 5. And then this is noise cancellation level 0 or hear-through mode. Back to full noise cancellation.
10.
So now I'm back to transparency mode on the AirPods Max. Let me turn on noise cancellation and then turn on the hairdryer to see how it cancels out the sound of the hairdryer. I'm going to switch to transparency mode again. So this is the transparency mode. Let's go back to noise cancellation. Going to switch to level 5.
5.
And then transparency mode or hear-through mode.
5.
So now let's cycle back to full noise cancellation again.
10.
So they sound slightly different, and that's normal across different manufacturers, each of whom has their own signature noise cancellation. To be honest, they're very comparable. One might do a little better in certain situations with certain frequencies, but in practical terms, I think they're quite comparable and both quite excellent. The only thing that gives Bose the edge is the variable noise cancellation, which lets you decide how much of ambient noise you want cancelled. You have 11 different levels of ANC, and I actually find this feature particularly useful when I'm out in the streets or in a busy shopping mall. I don't want to cancel out everything, I still want to be aware of my surroundings, but I also don't want full transparency mode, as that's quite deafening at times. So here's where the Bose gives me that option, but with the AirPods Max, it's an all or nothing thing, either full cancellation or full transparency. So here's where I'll give another point to Bose, not because their ANC is particularly better, again it's very comparable to the AirPods Max and both are excellent, but because of the variable active noise cancellation. Transparency mode. Bose, we said, has variable noise reduction with 11 different levels. Putting it at 0 activates the equivalent of transparency mode. That is, instead of using the mics around the ear cups to cancel out background noise, it does the opposite. It lets in ambient noise to make it seem like you're not wearing headphones. So you heard this in the earlier test, but this is the transparency mode or the hear-through mode on the Bose 700. The lavalier microphone is inside the ear cup, so technically it is picking up what my ears are picking up, and this is how the Bose 700 sounds like in noise cancellation level 0, which is transparency mode. Now let's see how the AirPods Max sound like with transparency mode. So now this is what the AirPods Max sound like with transparency mode, and as you can see, I sound much more natural than I did with the Bose's transparency mode or hear-through mode. So this is transparency mode on the AirPods Max, which I think is hands down the best and most natural transparency mode of any headphones or earphones that I've tried. While the Bose does a pretty good job at that, the AirPods Max are just next level. So this is an easy point for Apple here. Value for money. The AirPods Max cost $550. The Bose 700 retail for $379, but are often discounted to about $339. Either way, they're still significantly cheaper than the AirPods Max. While the AirPods Max do sound and look better, in my opinion, they're nowhere near $200 better. So, value for money, the point goes to Bose. Battery life. Battery life is rated at about the same for both of them, 20 hours. Bose gives you up to 2 hours with a 15-minute quick charge, while the AirPods Max give you about 1.5 hours of listening time with a 5-minute charge. In practical terms, both are quite comparable, so a point for each. Sound quality. The Bose 700 is a decent sounding headphone, not the best sounding, but pretty good sounding, and I was generally happy with how it sounds until I put it head to head with the AirPods Max. The AirPods Max do sound much better. It's a much fuller, crisper, and more refined sound with a great soundstage, so point for AirPods Max. It is worth mentioning here that with Bose you can play around a little bit with EQ, tuning the bass, treble, or mids to your liking. This is not possible with the AirPods Max. Also worth mentioning, the AirPods Max have spatial audio, which is quite impressive. It simulates surround sound to give you an immersive listening experience. However, content is limited, and this for now only works on iPhone and iPad. Call quality.
So let's start off with the AirPods Max. This is what the AirPods Max sound like in a quiet environment. Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers. A peck of pickled peppers. Peter Piper picked. If Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers, where's the peck of pickled peppers Peter Piper picked?
Now let's see what the Bose 700 sound like in a quiet environment. Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers. A peck of pickled peppers Peter Piper picked. If Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers, where's the peck of pickled peppers Peter Piper picked?
So now let's see what the AirPods Max sound like in a simulated noisy environment. So this is what the AirPods Max sound like in a simulated noisy environment. Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers. A peck of pickled peppers Peter Piper picked. If Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers, where's the peck of pickled peppers Peter Piper picked? So to give you an idea of how loud the simulated noise is, I'm going to switch to the camera's built-in microphone. So this is how loud the background sounds are. Pretty loud actually.
Now let's see what the Bose 700 sound like in the same simulated noisy environment. So this is what the Bose 700 sound like in the same simulated noisy environment at the same level. Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers. A peck of pickled peppers Peter Piper picked. If Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers, where's the peck of pickled peppers Peter Piper picked?
And now let's see how the AirPods Max stand up against a hairdryer. So this is how the AirPods Max sound like in a noisy environment with the hairdryer on. Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers. A peck of pickled peppers Peter Piper picked. If Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers, where's the peck of pickled peppers Peter Piper picked? Again, to give you an idea of how loud the hairdryer actually is, I'm going once again to switch to the camera's built-in microphone. So this is the sound coming in from the camera's built-in microphone, and this is how loud the hairdryer sounds.
Now let's see how the Bose 700 stand up against the hairdryer. This is how the Bose 700 sound like in a noisy environment with the hairdryer on. Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers. A peck of pickled peppers Peter Piper picked. If Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers, where's the peck of pickled peppers Peter Piper picked?
The Bose 700 has one of the best sounding mics for calls on any headphones, without a boom mic of course. Their beamforming mics work like magic in noisy environments to cancel out the background noises and pass your voice through clearly. They do an excellent job at that, probably unrivaled. However, all that technology I find comes slightly at the expense of the crispiness and clarity of your voice. It feels somewhat overprocessed and slightly distant, whereas with the AirPods Max it sounds cleaner and clearer. However, with any background noise, the Bose outperforms the AirPods Max easily. With constant low frequency noises like the hairdryer, the AirPods Max does a bit better than with variable noise like chatter, but you notice it does take a few seconds before it kicks in to properly attenuate the hairdryer's sound. As great as Bose's mics are, it's unfair to completely disregard the AirPods Max in this category because they sound good as well and slightly better in a quiet environment. So I'll say this, for calls in a quiet environment, the point goes to the AirPods Max, but for calls in a noisy environment, the point goes for Bose. Well, that's it folks. It appears that the Bose has a slight edge over the AirPods Max, but again, this is not a scientific method of evaluating, and subjectively, I would have picked the Bose as the better all-rounder headset. However, this decision is primarily driven by the outrageous price tag on the AirPods Max. So today, all things considered, I do think the Bose is a better pick because it's a much better bang for your buck. But if the AirPods Max were $50 more expensive than the Bose instead of $200 more expensive, I would have picked the AirPods Max without a doubt. But the point of this review is to help you with your purchase decision based on what matters most to you. So before I sign off, let's summarize the point breakdown. AirPods Max get a point for aesthetics, but then Bose gets a point for comfort. Bose also has a much better case. The AirPods Max win with interface and their digital crown, but Bose wins with having a power button and a 3.5mm jack. Both have great active noise cancelling, but Bose has a slight edge with variable ANC. Transparency mode is much better on the AirPods Max, and at $550, the AirPods Max won't win any points for value for money, so that's in favor of Bose. Battery life is the same for both, sound quality is better on the AirPods Max, and lastly, call quality is better on the AirPods Max in a quiet environment, but better on the Bose in a noisy one. So that's all folks, hope you've liked this comparison review. If you did, please hit the like button and subscribe to my channel if you'd like to see more of this content, as this encourages me to continue producing it. Until next time, cheers.